All right, picture a true crime story. But instead of a bank heist, we're talking about a crime of absolute geological proportions. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the long rains, unraveling the mind-bending mystery of a completely vanished ecosystem. We're going to explore exactly how an entire landscape can simply be erased, and frankly, the staggering corporate machinery that makes it all possible.
We're starting right at the scene of the crime with our lead investigator, an environmental detective named Kenji Mura. Now, to keep himself grounded amidst all this ecological devastation, Kenji actually writes 17-syllable haikus. It's his daily mindfulness practice that anchors him as he stands out there on the cracked, dry earth of what used to be a massive body of water called Lake Esperanza. Because Kenji understands that to solve an environmental crime, you can't just stare at a spreadsheet. First, you literally have to stand there and witness the loss.
So let's get into Section 1, Scene of the Crime, and investigate the astonishing reality of how a whole lake can just disappear without any massive public outcry.
The weapon used to commit this crime? It wasn't dynamite or a bulldozer, it was an underground pipe, and it was built by a massive agricultural giant named Ager. Their justification is absolutely wild. They use this beautifully cynical piece of corporate jargon, administrative creativity. That is the actual euphemism their lawyers used in a leaked email to describe the labyrinth of shell entities and permitting loopholes they used to hide an 8-year infrastructure project from the public. You really can't make this stuff up.
The crime unfolded so methodically, it was almost invisible. First step, Ager's engineers built these subtle berms, disguised to look like natural sediment, to quietly redirect the Rio Claro River. Step 2, instead of flowing into Lake Esperanza, the water was basically hijacked into a massive underground pipe network to feed corporate almond farms hundreds of miles away in the desert. And finally, Step 3, completely starved of its water source, Lake Esperanza slowly died over 7 years, leaving behind nothing but this cracked, ceramic-like earth. Which brings us to Section 2, Math versus the lake. How in the world did a major corporation legally justify stealing a massive body of water? Well, it all comes down to the models. You can actually see this battle for truth right there in the paperwork. On one side, you have the corporation's massive 847-page model used to secure their permits, which was wildly optimistic and relied on outdated climate data just to hide the damage. And on the other side, the harsh reality. Hydrologist Sofía Reyes created a concise 43-page countermodel. Sofía didn't need 800 pages of fluff. She used actual, observed isotope data to prove the undeniable reality of a dying lake.
So you're probably wondering, how did 847 pages completely miss a dying lake? Through terminal basin dynamics. That's the scientific term for what happens in areas where water ends its journey. The corporate model intentionally ignored the lakes entirely. They neutralized this whole catastrophe by slipping a sterile line of jargon deep into an appendix stating, terminal basin dynamics are not within scope. They legally defined the destruction of the lake out of existence.
But here's the thing. Physics really doesn't care about legal scope. In reality, Sofía calculated a staggering extraction volume, 47.3 million cubic meters of water. This figure is the smoking gun, because it pushed the extraction way past the legal thresholds. It turned their little administrative creativity into a highly prosecutable violation of the Pacific Basin Water Compact. They knew exactly where the line was, and they blew right past it.
Moving on to Section 3, the town is sinking. Because the stolen water didn't just kill a lake, it triggered a devastating, cascading geological failure across the entire region.
It was like a giant, tragic domino effect. When the lakes were drained, the ancient aquifer deep below ground lost its primary way to recharge. Because the aquifer was depleting, the soil above it started to compress into the empty space. And because the soil compressed, the 400-year-old town of San Augusto, which is sitting right on top of it, began to physically sink into the earth.
29 centimeters. That's how much the town has sunk in just 7 years. Almost a foot. The buildings are literally reading the geology back to us. This uneven subsidence is warping foundations and cracking the bell tower of the town's ancient church. The very ground they built their civilization on is just no longer solid. Now, with the aquifer projected to completely deplete in just 60 to 90 years, Kenji attempts to process the sheer grief of this the only way he knows how. His latest haiku actually breaks its rigid structure, clocking in at 18 syllables instead of the usual 17. The form broke because his world broke first.
That final line, even what we need, carries the immense heavy weight of a civilization compromising its own baseline survival. They didn't just steal luxury water, they stole survival water.
Let's dive into Section 4, the corporate planning horizon, where our investigation leads us to a sleepless whistleblower named Gerald Huang and a major smoking gun from a January 2017 boardroom meeting. During that 2017 meeting, an internal model was presented that clearly showed the lakes would dry up and that the region's municipal water security would be severely compromised in the decades to come. And the response from Ager's regional director, Carl Spence, decades is not our planning horizon. I mean, wow. They knew, but because the consequences fell entirely outside their 5-year profit window, they literally just moved on to the next agenda item. This right here exposes the fatal mismatch at the absolute heart of our investigation. Human financial systems operate on these short-term quarterly earnings and 5-year horizons, which are fundamentally out of sync with natural geological cycles that require thousands of years to maintain equilibrium. We're out here trying to run a 10,000-year water cycle on a corporate quarterly timeline.
Okay, Section 5, 7 Stolen Lakes. Just when Kenji's case felt like a localized, contained tragedy, the true, horrifying scale of this conspiracy blows wide open.
Bureau researchers uncover a devastating number: 7. Ager's method at Lake Esperanza wasn't some isolated one-off incident. They used the exact same contractor, the exact same engineering fingerprints, and the exact same loopholes to quietly drain 7 different lake systems across the entire region.
We are looking at the anatomy of systemic, organized crime. They used the same 3-phase construction approach to stay perfectly below legal thresholds, and the exact same infrastructure design. They just hid it behind different shell companies in different jurisdictions. So what started as one vanished lake suddenly scales up into a massive, coordinated corporate strategy affecting 70,000 people and draining 4 entirely different ancient aquifer systems.
Which leads us to Section 6, Witnessing the Anthropocene. To really grasp the full, terrifying weight of this crime, we have to zoom way out to the macro perspective of the water cycle itself.
Standing high up at a shrinking mountain glacier, Kenji observes a visible line in the deep blue ice from 1963. That's the exact moment industrial atmospheric change was permanently recorded in the ice. You can literally point to where 10,000 years of balance just ended. Fast forward to 2017, and a single secret corporate meeting seals the fate of these lakes. By 2100, the ancient aquifer is projected to be completely gone.
And here is where the concept of the long rains finally clicks into place. It's the brutal physics of a broken water cycle. Because the oceans are warmer, water evaporates way faster into an atmosphere that now holds massively more moisture. This results in extreme prolonged storms dumping onto mountains that have been totally stripped of their forests. So instead of gently soaking into the earth to refill that aquifer, the water violently runs off. It floods sinking towns like San Augusto and bypasses the dead underground aquifer entirely.
As Kenji gathers all this overwhelming evidence, the leaked emails, the internal models, the witness testimonies, he realizes his real job isn't just about filing paperwork. It's to witness, to hold the system accountable. He has to bridge this massive, crazy gap between made-up corporate math and the devastating ecological reality happening right there on the ground. Which brings us to the absolute most critical question of this whole explainer. How on earth do we restructure our laws to protect geological deep time from short-term financial horizons? Because right now, the legal system moves so slowly, waiting around for proof of damage, while the corporate machinery is out there moving at the speed of quarterly earnings, destroying ecosystems before the law can even lace up its shoes. I want to leave you with one final, kind of chilling thought. The water cycle, it's pure physics. It will keep turning, the water will fall, it will evaporate, and it will return. The water cycle will absolutely survive this. But if we don't align our human, financial, and legal systems with nature's timeline, the real question is, will we be able to survive inside it? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the systems around you.